Excellent. Well, good evening to everybody. It's an absolute delight to have you joining us this evening at our webinar on SFI Moorland assessment. And we're going to be both explaining the process for applying for SFI Moorland on common land, but also showcasing our new digital survey tools and hearing from moorland farmer who's been undertaking using the SFI Digital Tool on a large area of upland moorland. So I'm just going to go through the running order, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that everybody's familiar with how the Zoom functions they can use today are. So those who have joined the webinar as attendees, you're not able to talk and we don't see your faces, but we do really encourage you to participate in the webinar through using the chat function and through asking questions. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the chat, and that's where you can tell us a bit about yourselves. But if you'd like to ask any questions of the panelists, please use the Q&A. So that's a different button. And so please use the Q&A for questions and the chat if you've got technical difficulties or if you'd like to introduce yourself as well. And just have a little bit of chat with other people there. It's really nice to understand a bit more about people's interests and why they're joining here and which part of the country you come from, because there are commons in every county of England, and there's moorland all the way from the far southwest in Bodmin right up to Northumberland. So we're now going to start with our first poll. And Susie, would you like to run the first poll? And then So here's the first poll on the screen. And if you could just click where we've got farmer, common landowner, land agent, environmental NGO, farm advisor, common secretary or chair, or from the public sector, academic or policymaker, or other. So that's the first question. And then if you could answer the second question as well. So the second question is regarding the Moorland SFI. Are you part of a common or commons association planning to apply in the next 3 months? Planning to apply with non-common land? Already applied for an SFI? Or planning to apply in the future? Or you may be an advisor. So if you would like to just fill that in, it gives us a flavour for what people's interests in this evening are as well. So that's 2 questions. And what I'll do now is just quickly go through the running order to explain how what we'll be covering today. So we'll keep that poll open for a moment while I just go through. So the running order for tonight is that we're first going to have a policy update from Robin Milton, who's trustee of the Foundation for Common Land and is leading on our uplands policy work. We will then be moving to have a talk about SFI Commons beta phase. So as many of you will know that the commons are being treated differently under SFI Moorland, and the Foundation for Common Land has been working really closely with the Rural Payments Agency to develop that. We're delighted to have Adrian Sherwood and Joanne Humphreys with us today. And then we're going to hear from someone who's been involved in the SFI beta phase, Nick Mullins. And before we explain a little bit more, to remind you about the pre-application work before applying for SFI Moorland on Commons and how the FCL Digital Tool works for collecting the data for SFI Moorland. And finally, we're going to have a discussion with Ross Wilson, who's a Cumbrian upland farmer. So that's the order of proceedings for this evening. And then without further ado, if we can close the poll now, Susie, that would be great. So we've got the majority of people who are here are farmers, 66%. There are 4 common land owners, a few land agents, NGOs, some farm advisors, and people who are involved, common secretaries, chairs. So we've got a good lot of interest from commons and commons associations interested in applying. So 63% of those who aren't sort of interested in applying in the next 3 months. And then others applying with non-common land as well. And it may be that you're a commoner and also have non-common moorland as well, or it may be that we appreciate there are some who aren't on commons and will be applying for then simply for the non-common moorland. And that's absolutely great and lovely to have you with us too. So thank you very much for that. So now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Robin Milton, who's going to give us a bit of a update on current policies and his recent discussions with DEFRA.
Thank you, Julia. And hopefully everyone, my end is working. Mine will be quite brief because, regrettably, I hate to tell you, some of the policy I can actually talk about is not progressed quite as fast as we'd like. That's not completely a unique situation over the last year or so, but I'll give you a few brief parts around it. I think some of you know me in varying areas of work I do. I think recently I was just told further announcements are expected in the coming weeks, with early 2024 being highlighted as a time to expect to see a little more, with DEFRA expecting to build on their current offer. That I rather hope would be as early in 2024 as possible to give somebody those especially on commons, some indication of how to progress. The SFI, the Moorland MOR1 action has started. The first few commons have been involved. We'll hear a bit more about that later. Several showing interest. An awful lot more, I feel, are waiting to see where they can progress so that they can ensure that they've got the structure of their commons, internal commons agreement together before they progress with any more. And I rather hope we'll see some more. So some of the content of the future actions is probably one of the worst secret documents I think I've seen recently, although I won't venture into the details of them. What I'll just suggest is that payments around stocking rates are there. Those with lower stocking rates are likely to receive more money. Payment rates are not finalised or determined. There will be other actions there in the future around natural flood management, measures around species management. Just to highlight as well that an awful lot of commons are SSI. There has been a lot of discussion around that SSI consenting regime. There was kind of an anticipation that the MOR1 action would not require consenting. What has become evident is, in an awful lot of cases, Natural England are saying it does require consent to be in place to progress it. It could be all cases. I haven't heard all of them. Definitely for the future actions, Natural England consent will be required. And I think there's something around reminding people there, if you're looking to move into these moorland actions within SFI, please look at starting that activity around ensuring you have to consent in place as soon as possible. It's not always as fast as it might be. A lot of concern around landlord-tenant relationships and who's going to pick up some of this. DEFRA have promised that they will be looking at a flexible approach with stocking rates and habitat-based systems and how they integrate those. Where livestock are going to be grazed, there is going to be an assumption that they will be shepherded as part of that grazing, and that damage must not be caused to sensitive areas. So there will be some requirements in the background for those of us involved. Chances that some of those higher level activities that around rewetting, etc., peatland might attract more investment, and that there will be some funds in the higher levels potentially for feasibility studies. Comment around those people around ponies, that potentially they will be exempt from the exclusion period, with a kind of caveat that you don't damage anything. CS will continue, and I think it's a reminder to look at where SFI fits along CS, because there's potential to stack or not in certain cases. And a promise that an online application process for Commons is being developed with anticipated rollout early in 2024. So again, challenge to DEFRA, please ensure that is as soon as possible. And a reminder to people that actually, to be fair, there is a dedicated team for the SFI Moorland work headed up by Mike Sibley, which is fortunately down in my part of the world as well. So I know they will face some challenges around common land particularly, and I regret I have no more definite policy direction, but that is the direction of travel. There will be an expectation. It's not something for nothing. There is a movement towards a really good environmental management of these areas. We would like to ensure that there's integration as well with the farm-based management, and that landlord-tenant relationship will be structured such that they will be beneficial to all. I think that's more than enough from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robin. And I saw there was in the chat someone asking just confirming where Robin was from. So Robin is
I'm an ex-moor farmer.
He's an ex-moor farmer, and he's also provides advice to people on managing commons agreements. And Robin was also the NFU Upland spokesman for many years, and is a trustee of the Foundation for Common Land.
I am. I also chaired the Exmoor National Park Authority for 6 years, currently deputy chair.
Great. So lovely, and thank you very much, Robin, for the update. That's absolutely fantastic. Would now like to invite Joanne and Adrian to join the come online. And what we'd like now in this next section is we're going to be going through the process for Commons applying offline. So you may be aware that SFI 23 is generally an online process, and you log on to the Rural Payments portal in order to apply for that. For various reasons, the Commons, you're not able to apply for a Commons agreement online currently. As Robin said, we hope that comes in 2024. But the Foundation for Common Land has been working really hard with Adrian and Joanne and colleagues in order to ensure that Commons aren't being left behind, because at the moment the agreements start every month. So the sooner you get into an agreement, the sooner you get the money, so the sooner you can undertake those actions. So it's been a real delight to be working with Adrian, with Joanne and their colleagues. And what's really exciting, we now have 3 Commons that have signed up, and Joanne and Adrian are going to take us through the process of how you apply. So we've got hi Adrian, lovely to have you with us.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Julia. I was just going to do a quick introduction, do a little bit of background, and then hand over to Joe. But before I start, it's just introduce myself. Adrian Sherwood, work for the RPA, one of the operational delivery managers working on SFI. Joe, do you want to do a quick intro as well, and then I'll just do a quick overview?
Yeah, Joanne Humphreys, also working at the RPA, generally out of the Workington office, and yeah, working on SFI development, particularly on the 23 Commons.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. So I was just going to do a very quick overview of what we've been working on. Just before I start, thanks very much for inviting me tonight, and also wanted to say that we've really appreciated the input and support and working together and joint working that we've done with the Foundation for Commons as well. That's really paid dividends. Joe's going to talk through the process in a bit more detail, but what we're talking about here is the Moorland action on common land, which is in the SFI guidance as MOR1, which is on .gov.uk. Now, what I'll do is I'll put a link into the chat so that you can get access to the guidance. What we've done is developed a process with the Foundation for Common and 3 of the customers that Julia talked about through the private beta. We've developed a process that enables customers with common land to apply for for the MOR1 action, the MOR1 action under 23. So MOR1 is assess moorland and produce a written record. So again, I'll put the link in, which describes more about the action. And this is the action that's the only action that's available at the moment under 2023, SFI 2023. The payment rate is £2.30 per hectare, and there's an annual payment of £265 per agreement per year. I think it was covered earlier on. There is intention for more actions to be available in 2024. So hopefully, I think there's some hopefully some more news on that very shortly. The action that Joe and I are talking about tonight is only available on commons above the moorland line, and it is compatible with all of the agri-environment schemes. So if that includes the environmental stewardship, the countryside stewardship, the action is compatible with those. We've got 3 that we're doing a private beta with, we're testing with. We've been working with the process and going through the process with the 3. Joe, I think, will probably touch on that in a little bit more detail, but those agreements have been issued to the customers, and we've got a further I think around sort of 80 who've expressed an interest, and again we'll be looking to bring those customers in shortly and looking to roll that out with those customers. We are looking at developing a online process. I think sort of Tom covered it earlier on from the early part of 2024. So we're looking at rolling out a more automated and digital service in 2024, but at the moment we've got this process that we're going to talk through now. And if anybody is interested in taking advantage of the MOR1 option, please express an interest and ring the RPA helpline. Again, what I'll do is I'll pop the number and the details in the chat as well, so you've got that for the record. So that can be that will be picked up, and Tom mentioned it. We've got a dedicated team that is picking up all of the commons activity as well. So that's a team that we've set up to deal with specifically commons and commons applications. Today, Joe's going to talk through the process in a bit more detail. More than happy to ask any questions. If there are any questions that we can't answer, what we'll do is we'll take them away and feed them back through Julia or whoever. But we will endeavour to answer questions. But if there's anything we can't answer, we'll take it away and come back. So that was just what I wanted to cover as a scene set. If there isn't any questions, then I'll just hand straight over to Joe, who can talk through the process.
Yeah, we'll come back to questions at the
Great.
end,
Okay.
Adrian. So if you're able to hang on, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I mean, I've worked with Adrian for many years, and he has a long, great depth of experience, and it's really good to have you on, doing work and leading on this together with Joanne and your colleagues. So welcome, Joanne. Lovely to have you with us, and I think we'll let you take everyone through the process where everyone wants to know. They're really keen to get going. I think you've got probably, is it about 80 or so expressions of interest to people who are interested in progressing on commons?
Yeah, we have through sort of the various comms that have gone out about SFI 23, we've had around 80 customers come through to say that they'd like to or are interested in making a common land application. So the first thing to say is, if you are interested and you haven't yet done that, if you can please sort of email or phone our call centre and let us know that you're interested. Once we've received your interest, we'll get in touch and we'll look to complete some pre-eligibility checks. So we'll sort of ask you for the SPI, your business name, the name of the common that you're interested in placing into SFI 23, and the common, the parcel IDs on that common that you'd like to enter into your application. Once we've completed sort of those checks, we'll then look to send you out an application pack, and contained in that pack there'll also be some guidance about how you complete the pack. So I'm now going to share my screen, hopefully, and take you through what that pack looks like. Has that come up for everybody?
Yes, that's great, Joanne. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent stuff. So this is the application pack. So there will be an application reference that will be pre-populated, and the SPI will also have been added in. We'll ask you to complete the business name, the address. We'll ask you to give your agreement and name, to put in the nominated representative, your email address and a contact number. We'll then ask you to advise whether any of the land is a site of special scientific interest, or if it has a scheduled monument, historic or archaeological feature. And there are some drop-down boxes that you can answer just to yes or no for those questions. So that's the first tab completed. So then move on to the eligibility questions. Again, in this tab, there's the question and the answer using a drop-down, yes or no. And then there's a please read section. So if you need any further information, there's links that take you into different aspects of Gov UK that relate to that question. That'll give you a little bit more information if you're not sure how to answer. So I'll run through the questions. So the first one, it asks if your land details on the Rural Payments Portal are up to date. So it does then say, for common land, please visit the Rural Payment Agency Land Parcels website to ensure your land details are up to date. And there's a link contained in that please read section. So on checking that, you can then answer yes or no. Then, is all the land you're entering into the agreement registered as common land? Are all the land parcels you're entering into your agreement located above the moorland line? As Adrian has said, currently we're only considering land above the moorland line, as we're only offering the Moor 1 action. The next question is, have one or more people in the business been eligible to use the common to claim BPS in 21, 22 or 23? Will the business have management control of the land in your SFI application for the 3 years covering the SFI agreement? Are you applying for SFI on behalf of a group of 2 or more people with a formal legally enforceable internal arrangement between them, and have a nominated representative and a single bank account? Do you have the correct permissions in Rural Payments to submit an application? And those submissions need to be full business permissions or at BPS submit level. Will you apply with a minimum of 1 land parcel? Do you or more people in the business have 5 entitlements and 5 hectares of land? We'll then ask you to confirm that you will request an SFI Historic Environment Farm Environment Record if you need to, and also confirm that you'll get consent to complete the SFI actions on SSI. I think Rob mentioned before, is it needed? It is needed for SFI 23 Moor 1. You will have to request a SSI if you need to. We then ask you to confirm that you'll complete a survey to identify, assess and record the soil, vegetation, as well as historic and archaeological features across the moorland area entered into this action. And then it goes on to explain how to do that. And then also ask you to confirm that you will use the information gathered during your survey of the moorland to identify and record environmental benefits the moorland is already providing, and opportunities to maintain, enhance or restore the moorland to keep providing environmental benefits or provide more. Once you've answered all of those questions, I say using that drop down option, you'll move on to the land summary tab. This will be pre-populated with the parcel IDs that you gave as part of the pre-eligibility checks. And then for each of those lines, we'll ask you to complete the total field size, the parcel name, whether you need to request SSI on that parcel. Again, that's got a drop down. We'll ask you whether you want to include that in your application using the drop down, and also which action you want to apply for, which there's only one option there for the moorland. So once you've completed that for all the parcels, that is that application completed. We will then ask you to complete the SFI application declaration. So ask you to add in the application reference and the SBI. You need to sort of read through what that declaration says, and once you're happy with all of that, to put your name, your role and the date, and return that along with the application pack to the RPA. Well, once we get that, we will work through that. We will do some processing work on that, and once we've completed that processing work, we'll hopefully then be able to offer you an agreement. On receipt of that offer, we will also send you another declaration. So if you read through that offer and if you're happy to accept, you complete the agreement offer declaration and return that to us. And then your agreement will then go live from the 1st of the following month. I know we're doing questions at the end, but if anybody wanted me to run through something else later on, then I can go through that.
That's really great to hear, Joanne. Can we just sort of just to confirm the different stages? So once they're invited, just the sort of the process that people are applying for. So they will, once they're invited to the controlled rollout, they'll be sent the form by email. That's right. So this is a PDF form that they're sent.
Yes. So that will it'll be sent via email. So that's the pack that I've run through, but there will also be some guidance that's attached as well. So it will say something very similar to what I've just talked through, but just to help and support as they're filling that form in.
And in terms of specialist support, it's worthwhile saying that you've got a specialist team of people who are working on these. So it's not just any person at the RPA. Would you like to say a little bit more about that team and how they'll be able to support the application process?
Yeah, so this team have been involved with SFI from the start. So they were involved with SFI 22. Some people have been involved in the BPS Commons as well before that. So they've got a really good knowledge of Commons and Common Land. And, you know, they'll be there to help and support people. You know, if they'll sort of look after that SBI, if you like. So be that person will phone to sort of do those pre-eligibility checks. They'll be sending out then the application pack, and you know that they can be in regular contact and help and support people to make that application, and then you know right through to putting that agreement live.
Yeah. So in terms of the process that they will be supported through this, we do appreciate, you know, you do understand, don't you, with Commons, that there are a few more steps involved. And one of the things that we also found with the beta testing was that in terms of people, because of the maps aren't, would you like to say a little bit more about the maps and how people get their field numbers and how, because they don't have the maps available in the same way that other land parcels are available?
Yeah, so there is a link in on that question where you can select. So it's we link it into what we call DEFRA shared services, you know, which is the same place that you get the HEFA. So you can go in there and get the information that you need. But I think also as part of the private beta that we did, we had some sort of printouts of the land parcels, and we used that as well. as the application pack. So there's different ways, but say the team are there to support you in making that application. We know that, you know, it would be better if it was online, but we've got people there to support everybody in making the application.
Exactly. So once you've been invited to the control rollout, you will be supported through the process. So just this DEFRA Shared Services is effectively a website. There's a sort of mapping website that's got information on it, hasn't it? And you will effectively, you type in your SBI for the common, and then the details of all the land under that SBI then come up, isn't it? So you could, that's
Yes.
how it works. Yeah. So that's really helpful. I know that some of the people on the private beta 3 commons, they submitted their they have an HLS agreement, and they actually submitted the list of parcels from that HLS agreement, and you were able to work from that. Is that a way forward that people can use?
That was it.
Yeah.
So yes, part of the pre-eligibility. Yeah, that's what they sent through. So yeah, that worked fine for us.
Yeah, so the key is not to worry, not to panic if you're not sure whether you've got the information. There are lots of different ways that we can get the information, and by having, you know, specialists, and the way it works in the private beta is that people had a specific person who was in contact when it was the same person. There's that sort of continuity of care throughout the process. Are you hoping to be able to do that as you move into the controlled rollout?
Yes, you know, and you know, leave and things allowing. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a team of people in Exeter, and they will be led from Exeter, and they're being supported so that you will have someone specific working with you, taking you through the process. In terms of the process of how long it took, Joanne, would you like to say a little bit more? I know there are a few steps to this. Would you like to say, you know, roughly during private beta, how long the process took?
Yeah, it took a few weeks to move right through the process, but we were able to use the different bits of feedback that we received through that to improve the process as well. So it's hopefully, you know, it's as streamlined and as it can be, and to make it, you know, as I've said, as easy as possible to people to make an application. But it took, you know, a few weeks to get from the start of the process right through to the offer. But you know, the time taken to sort of do our processing and our checks, it differs different SBIs as well, doesn't it? But understand, you know, that, you know, people needed to ask us questions as well to complete the process from their side.
Yeah, so we found that it took about a month, didn't it, from beginning to end? So I think we started about the 31st of October, and by the people had returned their declarations on the 30th of November, and then they were live on the 1st of December. So that's fantastic that you can go through that process. Obviously, it depends how long you take to get your form back to you. So you can only respond depending on when people return their forms to you. So yes, so that's the process that people are going to be going through. There are so it's about, Stephen, I see, isn't it, in the chat, has said what's the time scale. So it's about a month from beginning to end. What's really important though is that, and we will be going through the pre-app stuff, is that you have completed all your pre-application work before you apply, because that declaration you put up, Joanne, that did ask people to confirm they'd undertaken all those steps, didn't it?
Yeah, it does. Do you want me to reshare?
Yeah, that would be great, just so people can make sure, and Tom's going to go through some of that in a moment, but I think it's worthwhile people understanding that so it's in that sort of, in submitting this application on behalf of, isn't it? It's those 5 bullet points in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah. So really important that you've got your internal agreement, you've got management control, you've consulted with everyone, you have a business contact and the bank account and SBI. So those are the steps that people need to go through. It's really helpful, that, Joanna. So I just think people, it is a bit more complicated on Commons, but we are here together, the Foundation for Common Land and with the RPA, we are, you know, keen to help you through this process to make sure that you know, you have access to the same funding, and get yourself prepared for new environmental land management schemes as they come on stream. So thank you very much, Joanne. That's been really helpful. in terms of that. So just important to also reiterate what Adrian said before, that with this SFI Moorland Assessment Moor 1, you are able to stack this on top of your countryside stewardship scheme or on top of your HLS UELS scheme. Is that right, Joanne?
Yes, that's correct. It's
Yeah,
compatible with all of the actions.
Yeah, so there's nothing competing there. There's no risk of double funding or anything like that. So just to reiterate, there's effectively on commons, there's an extra £16.45 a hectare available, and you'll be making the payments quarterly. Joanne, is that the process?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it'll be quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly in arrears, but this month is a bit different, isn't it? Because the government promised some sort of early payments.
Yeah, some accelerated payments, yes. So that this is that's different, but going forward, yeah, it'll be 3 months. So if it starts on, the 1st of January, then 3 months after that, the first payment will go out.
Okay, that's great. And you have to do your actions within a year, don't you? So the survey, you can apply now, even if you think you don't want to do your survey until June, because nobody's going to be coming and asking for your evidence until it comes round to your 1st year anniversary. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so you've effectively got a year to do your survey. So the sooner you get your application in, the sooner the money starts flowing, and then you can be ready for the better. You can do your survey in the winter time, but it might be easier and more comfortable and more interesting to do it when the probably not when it's covered in snow, because you do have to assess certain things that the snow may hide. So you've got, in terms of people, you sometimes ask for evidence, is that right? So once people have when they put their their each year, you ask for a certain proportion of commons and just Moorland all SFI 23.
Yeah, proportion of that action.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that everyone's keeping their data. That's great. Well, Joanne, thank you so much to you and to Adrian. And Adrian, did you want to say any more at this stage?
Nothing for me, thanks. Joe's covered it. I think no, thank you.
Great. Well, if you were able to hang around for some of the questions, that'd be really great. There are about 20 questions in the Q&A. You may want to have a quick look while we move on to the next section, so you can be prepared. So excellent. So I'm now we're going to show we're going to have a talk where Tom is going to be talking to Nick Mullins. Nick is a land agent, and Nick was participating in the private beta. So we had 3 commons that were participating. We knew that these commons had done all their pre-app work, were ready to go. So Tom, over to you and to start the conversation with Nick. I should add that Nick unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, so this was recorded yesterday. So Nick won't be able to answer questions, but should be able, between Tom and I, we should be able to answer most of the questions. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sharing my screen now, so hopefully you can all see that. Can you see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm just going to play the video. So yeah, I recorded this with Nick a couple of days ago, and as stated, he was part of the beta phase, but yeah, unfortunately could not make it tonight. So yeah, just if you can't hear sound, just let me know, but I did click share screen sound, so it should be all right. Right, so we're here with one of the beta applicants from this process that's just been going on. So this is Nick Mullins here from H&H, and yeah, Nick, if you're okay, we'll discuss a few questions and you can talk about your experience with the process.
Great, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So just first question, could you tell me what your role is at H&H and a bit about your experience with applications?
Yeah, so I'm a Chartered Surveyor and Environment Advisor at H&H Land and Estates based in Cumbria, but we work across the north of England. I've done many applications of different sorts, so lots of countryside stewardship applications, both on private land, but also on common land, and the same with SFI applications as they've been coming out for individual farms, and historically lots of BPS applications. So I'm used to the way that the RPA and these systems work and some of the issues that we've had with them in the past.
Fantastic, fantastic. And could you tell me a little bit about the common that you were applying for? So little about maybe the size of it, the number of commoners involved, just a little bit of information about it.
Yeah, so we represent probably about 20 different commons clients. So one of our commons, which was part of this beta application, has only 3 graziers on it, but it is it's a medium-sized common, I suppose. It's just under 2,500 hectares, and the owner is also a grazier because they let rights, which they're now managing in hand.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned obviously that you're part of the beta phase. So what was your experience of the beta phase overall, and the sort of bespoke system that's been going on?
Yeah, in terms of the interaction with the RPA itself, it's felt like quite a straightforward system. There were 1 or 2 sort of little glitches or queries along the way, but these were quickly rectified. Partly helped by the fact that there was an advisor at the RPA who was in regular contact with the telephone calls and the emails, keeping us updated. As soon as we would submit something or request something, they would get back in touch. So that was really helpful. And yeah, in terms of that side of the process, relatively straightforward. The common is also triple SI, so there were 1 or 2 hoops to jump through with Natural England and getting consent there. But I know that the RPA and Natural England are discussing some of that to try and reduce the amount of sort of paperwork that's required.
Roughly, what percentage of the area that you submitted was excluded?
Yeah, so we did have 1 or 2 issues with this. The answer is a very small percentage, just 0.3%, but it was all area categorized as cliff, which I raised with the RPA because the Moorland action is about surveying the common. It's no management requirement, and you are allowed scree, you are allowed bare rock. That cliff seemed a bit odd to be excluded. As I say, it was only a small amount, but obviously going forward with multiple applications, there's a lot of lands designated as cliff. And so the RPA have told me that myself and somebody else on the beta rollout, as far as I understand, they are now transferred it up the chain to the policy team and working out whether it can be included.
Fantastic. Well, it's good that action's been taken on that side of things. And you obviously mentioned at the start that you've got quite a lot of experience with doing applications. So from what you've seen about this application, how much experience do you think you need to be able to actually do this application?
To do purely the application paperwork, that was probably one of the most straightforward bits of the process, provided you know the answers. So you obviously need to know the common quite well, and know the parties that you're dealing with, the graziers, the owners, etc. But the filling out the forms, provided you had the information, was relatively straightforward. The one issue that we have with commons, as always, is knowing the full area of the common, because it's not mapped digitally in a way that we can see what the RPA have mapped. That makes it quite difficult to ensure that the areas that you believe to be correct are what they deem to be correct.
Fantastic. So you think it's something that someone from a commons association could do, not to try to take away any business from land agents, but you think it's something that someone who's in a commons association could do?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, often these forms, any form that you complete, is partly about having the right confidence. I think that anybody should in theory be capable, but actually there is quite a lot of preliminary work, which we'll touch on in a minute. But in terms of filling out the application form, in theory anyone could do it. But as I say, that they may feel that it's not as straightforward as that, because you need that information.
And so yeah, you touched on the pre-application stuff. So as we're going to discuss a little bit later in the webinar, and as hopefully a lot of people already know, there's a lot of work you need to do pre-application, filling an internal agreement and notifying all those with the legal interest. Roughly how long did that take, and how did you sort of find that pre-application work?
Yeah, it has taken a while, if I'm honest, especially with this being one of the first commons we dealt with. And at the moment, we have about 9 or 10 clients where we're doing this preliminary work. It slightly is a case of how long is a piece of string and how long it takes, because it depends on whether you've got any non-graziers on the common, because some commons are more straightforward, like the one that we put into the beta, because all the rights holders are graziers, so you're not having to notify non-graziers. So it depends on how up to date the register is, when it was last digitized. So if you've been into an environmental scheme, apply for one in the last couple of years, there won't be many significant changes. You'll have done that work then, so it's just updating it. But for some of our clients, that sort of work hasn't been done in detail for about 15, 20 years. So there's a lot of work, and the way that rights get transferred and updated or don't adds to the complexity. So yeah, if you've got a larger number of graziers as well, that takes time because you're agreeing the payment principles, and obviously different people have different levels of interest based on the number of rights and also the areas of the common that they graze and manage. In this instance, it was relatively straightforward because we were a small number of graziers, although a larger area, but we were able to get the payment principles agreed and then use the Foundation for Common Lands internal agreement template. And then there's just the process of getting that completed, agreed, signed, before then you can submit the application.
And so one last question, for getting the internal agreement stuff together, did you find that that was easier to do because this was a scheme or action that had nothing to do with stock and stocking levels?
Yeah, I think so. That's certainly the case, because you're really just deciding how you split the money. There's no changes to stocking calendars or management practice. There's obviously a question over how much you might pay somebody for surveying. But from an internal point of view, as I'm sure you'll touch on later in the webinar, the RPA aren't interested in how you divide the money. That's up for the association or commons group to decide. And so just deciding whether you pay people based on rights or just split the money equally between them, and finding enough people willing to do the survey work, that can take some time, but that can be where you involve some non-graziers.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, perfect. I appreciate your time, Nick. And yeah, thank you very much for giving us your sort of experience about the beta phase. I very much appreciate it.
That's all right.
For being part of it.
Yeah, no, pleasure on both accounts. And I'm sorry I can't be with you live. So if people have questions, then they can get in touch. So it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and we'll share Nick's email in case anybody has any questions.
Brilliant, Tom.
Would you like me to move on to, are you going to say a few words, or would you like me to move on to the next part?
Please move on to the next part about the pre-application work. That'd be great.
Okay, perfect. So I will reshare my screen. So just I promised Nick that I said I would share his email. So that is Nick's email there. As he said, he can't be with us live. Obviously, you know, like, just watch the video of him. But that is his email if you have any questions for him at all. So yeah, in this bit right here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pre-application work for SFI Moorland action, and what you need to do before joining into it. And then also talk a little bit about the digital tool that FCL has produced, and that a lot of people are already using. And then after that, you'll hear from Ross, who is somebody who has used the tool to survey his land. So there are a number of eligibility criteria that you need to fulfill on common land. So these are the things that are the things that you must do. So first one is, and these are all in the slides that Joanne showed. So meet the BPS eligibility requirements for common land. So that means that one or more people need to have been eligible to use the common to claim BPS in the last 3 years. It doesn't mean you have to have claimed BPS on the common in the last 3 years, but it just means that you were one or more people were eligible to use the common to claim it. You have to have a new formal legal enforceable internal agreement, so you can't use the same internal agreement that you had for your HLS or just have a little add-on to that. It's got to be a new internal agreement. And as Nick said, we have one on the FCL website on our toolkit, and we'll share a link to that in the chat. So please take advantage of that. It's something that's been drawn up through FCL's knowledge, and it's been looked at by solicitors. So a lot of that work that you might, have to spend, money to pay somebody to do that work, a lot of that work's already been done for you. And in that, you can state the payment principles. So that's also something that Nick touched on. There's no set way on how to divide the money. It is all up to the Commons Association. It's all up to you to decide how to do that. So as Nick mentioned, some pay people per right, some divide the money equally because rights don't really play a big factor in this action. Obviously, there's paying people if you're going to have the commoners be the ones, whether it's grazers, non-grazers, whoever, be the ones doing the surveying, paying people per point. So that's something we had a test and trial, and you can see lots about that on our website. We trialed paying people £30 per point, but that was just something that we trialed. You could do paying people £1,000 per point. It's really up to you. So there's a lot of freedom within that, but we do have example payment principles on the toolkit as well. You have to be a single entity, and one important thing is that if you already have a CS or HLS agreement, the same entity must be the one used to apply for SFI. You can't have two different entities overseeing agri-environment schemes on the same area of land, but that entity can be extended to include other people, and there's information about that on the eligibility page on gov.uk, and again, we'll share that in the chat. You have to have sufficient management control of the common to be able to complete the SFI actions for the 3-year agreement. And part of that is the next point, which is contacting, consulting everyone with a legal interest in managing the common. So grazers, non-grazers, owners, list goes on. It's not that everyone has to get involved. It's not something where the landowner has to give permission for it. The main thing is that everybody gets a chance to be involved. So that's the overriding sentiment, that everyone gets a chance to be involved. But you could have, 3 grazers, and you write to everyone else. There could be 100 other people involved. If they don't want to get involved, then they don't have to get involved. It's just that you've given them the chance to get involved. So that's the big thing. We also have templates for that on the FCL toolkit. So template letters to write out to grazers, to the non-grazers, and to landowners as well. And again, that just saves time, admin time on that. Instead of maybe having to spend all time writing up the letters, that's already there for you to do. And a big thing to stress is that now this is the perfect time to do this. So you can do, as it was mentioned, you can do the surveying anytime within the year. So if you signed up, got an agreement today, you've got a year to complete your actions. There's no specific time you have to do it. Ideally, it's sort of within those sort of summer, spring, summer months. So now the winter, it's a perfect time to work out your internal agreement, contact everyone, and do that pre-application work before you say that you're interested and get your agreement. So this is just an example of the page on our toolkit. So what that looks like, and then our page on SFI Moorland that's got all the sort of eligibility criteria, the templates, and a little bit of more information about stuff that we have done. So what is the assessment? We've obviously touched on today that it's a survey. So it's surveying 1 point for every 10 hectares of land that's entered into SFI Moorland. The questions relate to 5 different categories. So keep carbon, capture carbon, slow the flow, keep water clean, and niches for species. and the answers from these questions are broken down into public goods that you're already providing, opportunity to enhance, and opportunity to restore. So then from the data that you collect, you're meant to evaluate the public goods and identify the opportunities to deliver further goods. So it's not necessarily just about what could you restore and bring back, but it's also what public goods are you already providing, because that's extremely useful, not just what you could be restoring, but if you're already providing lots of public goods, that's very important as well. So how does the digital tool work that FCL has? So very, very simple. I'm sort of just going to briefly go over it. I'm going to be showing a video of how it works in the field. And then also Ross is going to be talking a little bit about it later in our conversation. But initially, the user creates a land app plan using a free account. And that in that plan, you will, if you see in the image right here, this was just for a demo that we did. You could divide that up into a bunch of different areas depending on how many people are doing the surveying. So that would be, you know, represented by group 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So create a plan on land app. There's lots of resources and training that we send to you on how to do that. So if you have no idea what I just said, don't worry about that at all. You then share that plan with me or send me the file. We run this through a widget that's been created by the land app, and that generates your points. So you can see right here, this is the land that was in the plan right there. So the points have been created for those different areas. So we then take those points, we run it through a mapping program called QGIS, and then we put it onto a mobile app called Mergin Maps. And I'll touch on this in a moment, but the big reason we use Mergin is because, and I think somebody asked about this maybe in the questions, that you can use this both online and offline. Obviously, a large amount of the areas that people are going to be surveying, there's no phone signal, there's no perfect Wi-Fi there, so you need to be able to do something that's offline. We've had people try doing the surveying using paper and had big damp stacks of paper, and just it's taken them a huge amount of time. So we really feel that this is a much faster way for you to be able to do it and an easy way to do it. So the users will then receive a link and download the projects onto their phone using Mergin. Again, when you sign up to Mergin, that is completely free as well. The service does cost, but there's no sort of hidden fees or anything like that. So that is an example right there of the points on your phone and the different colors representing the different people involved. Okay, so the user's going to click on a point, and I'm going to again show this in this video coming up, and a form comes up. So the form that we have with all the questions are the questions taken directly from the how to complete the SFI Moorland action page on gov.uk. So these are not questions that we've come up with ourselves. We want to make sure that this is eligible for any inspection. So the questions, the answers all come directly from that. You can be used online and offline, and you can have multiple users on one project. I'm going to mention this in the video, but the record so far, we have one common up in Cumbria where there's 18 different commoners who are surveying their area, and they could all be out at the same time surveying their specific area. So it doesn't matter how many people you've got involved, everyone can have an opportunity at surveying if they want to. Safety is obviously a big priority. You can see here on the soil type, you can put that the whole 10 hectares is unsafe, but we do have a feature under edit geometry that you can do online and offline, that you can move the points if the location is dangerous. We don't want anyone risking life and limb to stick a stick in the ground. And you can also take a photo in the app on the form. So now I'm going to show the video. So I apologize that it's slightly dark, but hopefully this will give you a good representation of what using the app is like.
This is a brief video to show you how to use the Mergin app out in the field. So you've already done the land app work in the desktop, and I've briefly already gone over that in the webinar, but now to show how to use Mergin in the field. So here we've got our area with all our points. The blue point there is a point I have already done. The different colored points represent different people. So let's say in this area there were 4 different graziers. We've got a yellow point a red point, a black point, and a light green point representing the different graziers. Those areas can be worked on, the different color points, at the same time. That's a very important thing, that you don't have two people working on the same colored points at the same time. Even if it's different points, if I'm editing red while someone else is editing red, that's going to cause an issue. So let's get to doing our point. So the orange dot is where I am, the red point is where the dot is. So I want to work out how to get to my point. I've got the grid reference there, and again, I'm outside of phone signal right here, so very important to mention that this works in and out of phone signal. I've also got the Google Maps URL, doesn't really work outside of phone signal that bit, but we've got the grid reference right here. That number right there is the accuracy of my GPS. If I want to know how far away I am from the point, I'm going to click right there. So right now I'm 25 meters away from the point. So the point is in this direction, so we're going to walk along to it, especially when you're outside of phone signal. The GPS can take a moment to catch up, so just be patient with it. Right now I'm 17 meters away, 14. That's just slightly over here. Okay, perfect. I have reached the point. So now what I'm going to do, because I am at the point right here, I'm now going to edit the point. So I'm going to press the pen right here. So we have all the different possible questions right here, all the questions right here that you have to answer for all soil types. But if you click on the soil type or any of the things, you'll see all the different answers that pop up. We've got peat, shallow peat, non-peat, 10 hectares unsafe. For the soil, if I click on peat, whether it's deep or shallow, the peat questions come up, and if I click on non-peat, the non-peat questions come up right here. So how am I going to work out what soil I have? Well, I've got my cable rod right here with my different measurements, so to tell me whether it's non-peat, shallow peat, or deep peat. So what I'm going to do is stick it in the ground. I'm not going to stick it in forcibly, just barely stick it in the ground, see how much it easily slides in. It's gone less than 5, which means we are in non-peat right there. So now I'm going to put in my other answers. Ground cover, you can see this one, you can't see the answer fully, but if you just click on it, you get the whole answer there, and you can easily just change which answer you're doing. So and that's actually the answer I've got right here. So no obvious areas of bare ground. Now, big important point is you're looking in a 2 by 2 meter quadrat. So 2 in this direction, 2 in this direction around you. So you're not looking off into the distance. If you see a bare piece of bare earth over there, you're not including that. You're just looking 1 meter out this way, each way, this way, leading to a 2 by 2 meter quadrat. And that's the area that you're looking in for your answers. So now, extent of erosion, I've got no obvious areas of bare ground or erosion. It's important to trust your gut with this. Some of the answers can seem quite similar, but it's about trusting your gut. And one important thing, especially if you have multiple people working on an area, especially if you have a common, right now we've got 18 people working on one area, is that you come together, or as many of you come together as possible, to do one point together. We can set up free demos for that, and you can practice a point together to make sure everyone's on board, thinking the same things, because the most important thing is consistency. You know, this is a survey, you want to try and get as much consistency between everyone. Now, roughness of the ground surface, we've got in this area frequent moss, hummocks, tussocks, or bracken. Now we've got these answers. We've got a how-to guide on how to do the survey. So that's, I'm not explaining how to do the survey right now, just how to use the app, but we've got this in a lot more detail on the how to use the survey guide. So that tells you what tall woody vegetation, bit of it's mentioned there, but what that actually entails. So right here, I've used my cable rod with the measurements to measure the height. So right here, the vegetation was mostly below 30 centimeters. For this one, it was this tall, deep-rooted vegetation was mostly below 25 centimeters. This one's an either or, so ideally it would fit on the screen, but it doesn't. But you can see that that's either structure, non-grassy vegetation, if the area has a greater than 25% dwarf shrub cover, or structure of grassy vegetation if it's an area has greater than 75% grass/herb cover. So it's this one. So I'm going to click on this, and it's a mixture of heights. And again, click on the thing, then you can see the full answer. Drainage or gullies, there are none. Tree and scrub, there are none. Rock and scree, there is none. Bracken, there is none. Again, you can look at all the different answers. The initials, I'm going to put my initials, so TL. Then, very important, you've got to take a photo. So for taking the photo, you can do that in app. So you could have done it on your gallery, but really we recommend you taking the photo and then adding it. But really, you should be taking the photo fresh right here. Big thing, and this there's a video on it in the guidance, is make sure you have your geotagging on, because one of the things is we add your photos to the land app project, so then you can see that. So it is a little dark right now, but let's not worry about that. So for taking the photo, I'm going to step back a little bit, have my rod in the ground where I put it in, and then I'm going to take the photo that shows the whole area that I was surveying. I'm happy with that photo, so I'm pressing OK. You can see the photos in there right there. If I wanted to change it, I could press delete. Now for today's date, very important to do. I'm clicking on the calendar. Make sure for every point you do, you click on the calendar to save the date. If you needed to move the point, and you can do that using the edit geometry function, very simple. Again, you can do that online or offline. I'd put why I've moved the point, and then through our engagement events, people really said they wanted to be able to put a comment on the point, because big thing, the data is yours. You're using this for the future. So if you notice that there's something odd about the point, or if you just have any comments on the point, you can put that in right there. So I'm happy with my answers. So I'm going to press save, and you can see I've stepped away from the point a little bit, that the point has turned blue. So that's the big thing. That's why you can see blue isn't a color that we use in any of these, because to tell if a point has been done, the point turns blue. Now what I'm going to do next is, and this is something you should do ideally in the morning and in the evening when you come out from surveying, certainly before you start, is I'm going to turn on phone signal right there, and I'm going to press this button here, the sync button right here, and that's going to sync, and it says successfully synchronized. So that uploads it to the dashboard. That's how I can keep track of what you've done. There's support available anytime, so please do call or email if you have any issues. But once it's synced, then I can download it, produce all your reports, and that's the main way that the data is saved. So if you don't sync it at the end of the day, that's no issue. Ideally, don't drop your phone in a thing of water, because the data is still saved. But ideally, to be safe, save it and sync it every day. So that's just a brief guide on how to use Mergin, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, so then just continuing with the slides. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll get through these. So you can see this is the sync button for anyone that didn't see it. So these all the points have turned blue. We have multiple outputs in the reports that we draw up for you after you've finished your surveying. So that includes, big Excel file of rows and rows of all your data. But we feel like, from a practicality standpoint, that whilst it's great to have that, how do you really work out what you've gone and got it on your land, and how can you really work out how you're going to manage your land just by looking at rows and rows of data? So we've got these maps here that we've created that tell you sort of the spread of the data that you've collected, and over the years those will get more granular, more specific, so then you can actually see, okay, well, we've got something going on over here, maybe we want to do a more in-depth survey there. It's just about giving you options and power with the data that you've collected. So the decisions you're making about the land are your own decisions, rather than having potentially somebody else telling you what to do with your land. You can be in power and make your own decisions. So this is just an example of what the land app plan would look like. So we're adding the photos to the plan as well with all the information. The cost of the service is 60p per hectare plus VAT, which is paid in 2 installments and detailed in contract. So obviously 50% at the start, 50% towards the end. Lots of support, lots of training resources. We do double check with you once you've created your land app plan that the area that you've sent us matches the area you have in your agreement. We done that from very early on. One of the reasons is somebody sent us a map of their whole common, and then when I double checked the area with them, it was vastly larger than the area they actually had their agreement, because not all of their common was above the moorland line, and it was only the part of the common, as has been stated, that's above the moorland line that was in the agreement. So that is something we do double check. We just don't wildly charge you giant amount of money without making sure that it's for the right area. We've got strict language about the data. You're given all the data, all the raw data that you collect. We want, it's your data. We need access to it to be able to do the reports, but we're not using it for our own sneaky means. We've had lots of engagement events that hopefully some of you who are attending the webinar have been to in Dartmoor, in Cumbria, Yorkshire Dales, that's led to improvements. The idea is that anybody could use this, whether you've never held a phone before or you've got 50 years of surveying experience. We want everyone to be able to do it. We certainly are encouraging commoners and people who are getting the agreements to be the ones to do it, because it's a way to keep more money within your own association or within your farm business. But we're always looking for feedback on it. Just a little bit about where we are now. It's available to everyone, regardless if you're common land or not. The majority of people we've been working with have been SFI 22 agreement holders, which makes sense. Obviously, they're people who, as their SFI 22 is closing, got a lot more sort of time constraints. We've had about 16,000 hectares finished, about 40,000 hectares signed up in total, and about 90,000 hectares further who have expressed an interest. A lot of that has been common land. As I said, we can set up demo areas for free. We want people to feel as comfortable as possible before using the app. So no issue, if for us creating a demo areas, and we are trialing a farm-led habitat assessment on top of this, because what we found is that people, when they're going out doing this surveying, they're going to parts of commons, they're common that they maybe hadn't before, and they want to know more about their land. So this is something that we're trying on top of it. And if you have any questions after today, please don't hesitate to contact me at sfi@foundationforcommonland.org.uk. Now, I'm just conscious of time, so I'll stop sharing and I will talk to Ross, if that's okay with everyone.
Hello.
Hey Ross, how's it going?
Yeah, all right, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I appreciate you very much. For using that, but then also talking about it right now. And I promise everyone, Ross is giving his honest opinion, so he's not, we're not been forced. There's not someone with a gun to the side of his head or anything to say how great it is. It's we want people's honest opinions of it, because we want it to be a good experience for the user as possible. So just a few questions. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the land that you surveyed?
Yeah, so we've surveyed 2,400 hectares of moorland, which is mostly peat and heather, some areas of bracken, and some grassy areas where our cows graze.
Fantastic. And had you considered sort of any other methods to survey your land at all?
Well, as you mentioned just before, you said about getting someone to come in and survey your points, but that was £30 a point. And we worked out it'd be over £7,000 for us to get someone to survey. So being a farmer, just took on ourselves to do.
No, that's fantastic. And that's the whole, idea, behind this. What was your previous experience of using technology?
So none at all. So I had a lad that actually was working for me, and he had a bit of experience with it. So we set out together and went to the first few points ourselves, and made sure we could do it and mapping it exactly the same, and then off we went. But it was straightforward, very straightforward.
Fantastic. And I guess, well, my next question was going to be about how many people surveyed your land. So it was just you and the person that was helping you?
Yeah, a lad that I had working over the summer on the farm. So there was just the two of us doing, and I think we had about 240 points to do.
Yeah. And how long would you say it took you to survey 1 point on average?
Well, 3 or 4 minutes each point, as you said, depending on the peat depth, is depending on how many questions you get or the different types of questions you get. But yeah, 3 or 4 minutes at each point max.
And then to get between those points, what sort of method of travel did you use to get around the area?
So I would do all the points that I could get to on the quad bike, and I would go around. Isaac, the lad who was working for me, hadn't got much experience on a quad bike, so he was doing it all on foot. I would go and drop him off, and then we'd meet somewhere halfway through the day for lunch, whatever, and then he would set off walking again. But on the steeper ground, we'd just park up the quad bike, and we'd both set off walking.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds a pretty efficient way of doing it. How long did it take you to complete all your points?
So I wouldn't have an exact amount of days we did, because obviously we worked it around farm jobs. Sometimes we would go off for a couple of hours and do a few points, and then one day we set off at 7 a.m. I dropped him off, and then I set off walking as well, and I think we did 48 points in a day. He did a full day and I did a half day. So it wouldn't be over 10-12 days of work.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And obviously we've been, I was just talking about that, but what was your experience of sort of using that? How easy did you find it to use? How easy did you find it to answer the questions? Yeah,
so I mean, you set up all our land on the merging app, and then all the points came up, and it was straightforward. We literally just walked to the point, and then as you showed on the video, there's just the drop down questions, and we just made sure we were filling out the questions the same. We did the first maybe 10 points together, and then straightforward as it got.
How much of your land was in and outside of phone signal, roughly, if you can remember?
Oh yeah, probably about 80% outside of signal. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the case for a lot of people who are doing this. How did you find taking the photos in the app?
Yeah, so I spoke to you halfway through our survey, and we ended up putting we used a little like sheep hurdle peg to put into the ground, and we started putting that in, and we made sure we were taking a couple of steps back, and it was easy. Just do it all on the app.
And then, so one thing that I didn't touch on my presentation was about sort of historic and scheduled monuments. That's not something that we currently can accommodate in the app. So I know people have been doing different things, but how did you guys, record your historic and scheduled monuments?
So we had no map showing where they were. So we phoned the woman that deals with our grants, and she actually sent them through on paper, which was more of a hassle than obviously using the merging app. But yeah, we got them done, but we went out on paper, and instead of following it on the app, we had to follow it on the paper maps.
Okay, yeah. And how did you sort of find that?
Oh yeah, easy, yeah. But I mean, it was a bit more of a hassle going through the papers every time and getting out of the rucksack, but no, it was fine.
Yeah. And do you think you would use the service again for your surveying?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be using it again next year. Yeah, it's easy as it is.
And then my last question is, would you recommend people to sign up to SFI Moorland in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think the lad that was working for me, he really enjoyed it. He got to know the land, and it was brilliant for me so he did know the land. And we really enjoyed doing it. So yeah.
Perfect, Ross. Well, I appreciate you taking your time out of your one of your free evenings to talk with us today. And I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ross. Perfect.
Cheers,
thank you so much. And so, I think we're going to go to the Q&A. One thing I forgot to mention in my presentation is we have had several people who have had inspections, and they have passed their inspections using our service. So that's just one thing I forgot to highlight. But yeah, that's the end of let me turn off my.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I went over just a little bit.
Don't worry, Tom. Just so people know, because I forgot to introduce Tom, that Tom works for the Foundation for Common Land. He works 3 days a week, but he actually is available almost 7 days a week. So he's very happy to work evenings. You can ring him up or WhatsApp him. And Tom leads on our SFI Digital App service. So Tom is very accessible in terms of and you can see he's got it in an easy manner, is very willing to help people. So this isn't an app that you just sign up to on the App Store and there isn't a human being behind it. This is very much there's a hand-holding service behind this, and to make sure everyone's supported. Now, I'm just conscious of time. We've had a lot of questions this evening, which is really great to have heard from people. There's obviously a lot of interest in this and people want to get it right. So Adrian, there's been quite a lot of questions about the timing for the controlled rollout. I don't know whether, I know you're going through the process of reconfirming the paperwork internally within the RPA. Have you got any idea of when the controlled rollout, these sort of 80 people in your system, might be invited?
Yeah, we're wanting to get the 3, get some learning from that, and then we're wanting to get the remainder, this sort of like 80, done in sort of like a safe rollout in batches. So I think we're wanting to do that as soon as possible, Julia. Now, we're not, I think somebody put something in the chat about before Christmas and stuff like that. Now, we will want to start sooner rather than later in the next, couple of weeks, start inviting some of the people in. But there won't be all 80 won't be done and dusted and brought in before Christmas. I think we'll be looking at going into the new year, but we want to get them done. We want to start bringing them in, in the next couple of weeks, Julia. I think that's the intention.
That's really, really good news, which is why we've got the webinar now. I think what's important to say is we appreciate some people have expressed interest and may not have their internal agreement ready. If you are invited and you're not ready, please do tell the RPA that, and then they can perhaps ask someone else who's already ready. It's very hard from your list of 80. You don't know who's got all their pre-app stuff done or not, ready or not. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you won't go in. It just means that, say you went in batches of 20 and you had 4 batches of 20. You want to make sure you're working with people who are ready to go so they can get through the process as quickly as possible. If you're one of those 80 commons and you haven't done all your pre-app stuff, you've probably got a couple of weeks to get everything up and ready. So do go onto our website. I put the link in the chat so you can find the templates, get going, get your internal agreement, make sure you consult with everybody. There are quite a few questions around consulting, in the chat. So can non-graziers be involved in this? Yes, non-graziers can be involved. It is up to the association to decide how they're going to make it work. It is called a sustainable farming incentive. It is about moving towards land management, but this is a survey, and I know quite a few commons that have involved non-graziers, but it's up to you to work out how to split the money. Similarly, it's up to you, isn't it, Adrian, am I right in saying you don't get involved in that side of things, who does the surveying and that, so there aren't strict rules about that. That's but you do have to have an internal agreement and everybody needs to sign up to it. So there's one question I notice here, says that they'd like to survey part of the common they manage, but the agent for the estates wants to get a contractor in to do the survey. Where do I stand? Well, you need to work that out in your internal agreement. So don't sign up to something you don't want to do. And what we're really keen about is that the money stays with people who are with the commoners, rather than the money being used to pay. You don't need to pay environmental consultants in order to do this work. I know some commons are choosing to do that. That's up to them. But if you'd like to be involved, maybe the land, maybe the estate if you want to do, say, 20% of the common and they want to use a contractor for the rest, you can do a mix and match, as Tom has explained. It's really easy for us to split the common up in terms of so it doesn't have to be all one person. You could have split the common into 5, you could split the common into 25 sections. You decide how to split it up. We allocate the points and everyone can be involved. Another question, Adrian, that might be useful for you to be able to answer is that can commons apply that are only partly above the moorland line?
Yeah, we have rolled out the existing process, which is only covering land above the moorland line. So I think and the intention is that land below the moorland line would then have to sort of part of the process, the digital process that we're rolling out in 2024. Yeah, Joe, you
Yeah,
might need to. They can.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So if you've got land above and below the moorland line, you can only enter the land above the moorland
yeah.
line, because that's the only land you can do the more one action on. But yes, you can apply. So when you were going through that pre-eligibility questions, you would just give those land parcels that were above the moorland line, and those would be the ones we included in the application. We will do a check to make sure that the land parcels that we're given are above the moorland line as well.
What happens if they're split, Joanne? I know some people have some parcels that are part moorland and part not moorland. How do you deal with that?
I think that they're only classed as above the moorland line if it's, is it, I think it's 99% has to be above the moorland line to be classed as a moorland parcel.
Okay, so it's a vast majority has to be above the moorland line. So if it's a slither, it's okay. But if there's a big chunk of it, then it probably wouldn't, that parcel wouldn't count. But the other parcels that are fully moorland can go in.
Yes.
So the key is to look. Somebody asked about what the moorland line is. If you go on Magic, I put in the chat. So you go magic.defra.gov.uk, and there they will have a map of the moorland line. So, but if you've got any queries, once you're invited, the RPA will also help you with that process. So yeah, we'll tell you which are eligible or not. I'm just looking through. There's some people asking about private farms and then the common. My understanding is that you apply separately. So the common land is separate from the farm. So anybody who's got intakes or allotments or some private moorland, they apply, but that's on a separate application, maybe with their home farm, than it is for the common. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to do that online.
Yeah, so that's so they can do your SFI Moorland on non-common land is online, and for commons is on the offline bespoke process. So yeah, we've had all these. We think we've dealt with all the questions about timing. So it will be in the next couple of weeks. They'll be rolling that out. What happens if not all the active graziers on a common want to be part of the application? You don't need to have everybody involved. So as long as you can come to an internal, you have an internal agreement. If people don't want to be involved and they don't sign up to the internal agreement, that's fine too, as long as you can demonstrate you have consulted with them. So it's not like when you're trying to agree stocking levels where the RPA will say, I see Fred's got 1,000 rights, he hasn't signed up, that could put the agreement at risk. With this, because there's no actual land management, it's a survey, it doesn't matter if some people choose not to participate. So you're not doing checks, are you, as part of this, Joanne, on who's signed up to it?
No, we don't ask. As long as you answer the question, that you've got management control, that's what we're interested in. So if those people are included means you've still got management control, then that would be okay.
One of the things is that on some commons there may be we know one common there were 21 graziers, but only 6 of them wanted to do the surveying. So they paid the people doing the surveying so much per point, and then they divided up the rest of the money according to the rights. So there are opportunities, and Tom has some advice he can share. You have sort of principles for payment. So it doesn't matter. You can have active graziers who don't get involved at all. You can have active graziers who participate and come to meetings but don't do the surveying, and then they receive a payment. So there's a range of models, and we can get in touch with the Foundation for Common Land if you'd like any more ideas around that. We don't provide advice, but we do provide signposting and guidance. The RPA cannot advise you on how to split the money up. That's not their role. I think that's right. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it says here, if graziers don't wish to participate, does their heft need surveying? Yes, the whole common goes in. The whole common needs surveying. You don't have to divide it up by heft. So you divide it up. According to the people doing the surveying. And as I said, in some cases, it might be that half the common will be surveyed by surveyors. Someone can bring in their their grandchild or their nephew or someone else to do the surveying for them, they can contract it out. But there's the whole common goes in, even if some of the graziers don't wish to participate, because your heft isn't a legal entity. You have rights over the common, but the heft isn't a legal entity. It's the whole land that all moorland land within that common land unit goes in there. So we've just, I know we're 4 minutes over. I think we have about SFI 22 agreements. I think you've answered one live. It says, can you confirm that they can reapply what in the future? So people on SFI 22. Adrian, do you just want to cover off, or Joanne?
Yeah. So we know that their agreements will be ending sort of end of Jan, Feb and March. So we'll be in touch with them. So we'll be in touch, giving enough time for them to start making their SFI 23 application. And so we want to work with them so there's no funding gap. So if they sort of finish at the end of January, that we've got everything ready and lined up for the 23 agreement to go live on the 1st of Feb. So that's our plan.
Yeah. So I think that's, and about this, the first 1,000 hectares, they do get the first 50 hectares, there's the extra 1,000, isn't there?
Yeah, £20 a hectare for the first 50 hectares, so it's a maximum of the 1,000. Yeah, that will also be included.
That's included on
in
top.
The quarterly payments. Yeah.
It's sort of split up, so it's effectively an extra 200. If you've got at least 50 hectares, there's an extra £250 per quarter is paid through that.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Really conscious we've kept people longer than that. We did try not to run over, but there were so many questions I wanted to cover through those. In terms of the person who asked about dung beetles, it's not the topic of this webinar. FCL is doing a lot of work on dung beetles, and we are going to be running a webinar about animal health later on that we will cover this. And we know that dung beetles are really important in terms of biodiversity in soil, so we'll cover that later. So I hope I've covered most things. If you feel you haven't been your question hasn't been answered, please do email. I'd ask best to email Tom. It's sfi@foundationforcommonland.org.uk or tom@foundationforcommonland.org.uk, and Tom will be able to answer your questions. I'd like to say a huge thanks to everybody who's participated in this evening's webinar, to Ross, to Adrian, to Joanne, to Robin, to Susie and to Lindsay in the background on the tech. And we've been delighted to have so many people here this evening. We've got a final poll. So the question is do you feel more confident now in making an application? And we appreciate there's a lot to think about here. One thing is that if you go into and do sign up for the digital app, we do provide guidance, we provide videos, we provide Tom is available. So as I say, it is a supported service. So excellent. We've got so far we've got about 80% of people who feel more confident after this webinar. Oh, it's going down to 75%. But we have, I will just keep that running for a little bit longer. And this video will be available. I appreciate we've given a lot of information here during a fairly short period of time. We will send out the video recording. We'll also send out links to our the resources we have available on the website. And do remember, if you haven't applied yet, if you're interested in applying, and do contact the RPA. If you email the RPA and put Common Land and Shared Grazing SFI Moorland in the subject line, it will get to the right people, and include your SBI, and then they will be in touch with you. There was someone who asked about phone numbers. Yeah, do include a mobile phone number. If you want to update your details on the rural payments, your contact details, you can put a mobile phone number in there, and then people will have it available as well. So thank you very much. We can close the poll now. That would be great. So thank you very much. So 70% of people are more confident, 5% of people aren't more confident, 10% of people feel the same, and 15% remain unsure. So that sounds like a reasonably positive outcome. If you're still feeling unsure, or you're not more confident and you would like some extra support, please do get in touch with us, or either way do. So I want to wish everyone a very good evening. Thank you for joining, and do look at our YouTube channel, where we've got more details about our other videos from other webinars available, and we've got some more webinars. I think our next webinar is in February on animal health and the work we've been doing on that. So good evening, and thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Cheers, Julia.